Anyone see anything now? Or hear anything? Okay. It looks like at least some people can see me. I have no idea what I was yammering about when all of that fun started. Um, Trash did tell me the last word I said, but I think I'm going to need a little more context than that. Um, so I was talking about different types of paint and things. Uh, so if there was something I was in the middle of talking about that you would like me to talk more about, just let me know. Oh, that's not the color I wanted. I wanted more of the Storm Chaser blue. And then I'm gonna highlight with Shark Bite, which I think is also a color from last year, not this year, but I guess there weren't a ton of blue because since we had blues last year, we didn't get as many blues this year. So I do want it to look rough, so I may not want to transition up too smoothly. So I'm gonna try just doing like streaky strokes and stuff. Let me make a little transition in case. But I'm also going to try to remember to do the thing that I forget to do, which is start doing this in an area that is not like the part people are most likely to focus on. So if I got my colors wrong, it's not going to be as noticeable. So I'm just going to do like little streaky strokes in hopes that it will sort of look like fabric. If I were doing like an all-out fancy display version of this, I would go both directions so that it looked like cross-hatching. But I don't think that that is appropriate for kind of the level of what I've decided to do with this figure. It also helps if you're doing like the super fine texture. It helps to use a very fine brush, of course. But I just need these to look kind of rough. They don't have to look exactly like, burlap sack texture or something. So I did end up using my mix of between the two colors. Let me check because Justin might be... Okay. Justin confirms that it's working. So now we all agree that it's working. Okay. Going with the lighter color, and you can probably see it a bit more. Can we zoom more? Yes, we can. Make sure he's focused. But I am still trying, as much as I'm doing the texture, I'm trying to think about where would areas be getting more light. Because, regardless of which way you're applying the paint, which method you're using to apply the paint, that's the big question, is where are things receiving more and less light so that they look three-dimensional and realistic and interesting. And yes, I'm secretly talking about contrast again. There's literally no time that I'm not talking about contrast. I know, I get tired of it too. So if you were here for some of my streams in the past little while, but not all of them, a lot of them were focused on convention type stuff. So I talked about, the kind of feedback that people often get on their miniatures at a convention so that you can try to address those problems before you go and make new mistakes and learn new things. We had a show about transporting miniatures, whether they're for gaming or fancy display pieces. What else did we talk about? I did 2 of the miniatures where I did like a critique and then repainted them. But a few days ago, I put up my latest blog post is like kind of an index to all the articles and in some cases videos now that I have available where I'm talking about kind of how to improve your miniatures and what are common issues that we see in miniatures. And 100% I talk about contrast, but that is not the only problem by a long shot. Am I staying in frame? I think I'm doing all right at staying in frame. It's a Christmas miracle. So even though these ends of the pants are further down on the figure, so they begin less light, they are also clearly very worn out. So I definitely want to have some highlighting there so they look more faded, as well as, you know, like if they were pristine pants, I would probably not highlight up to the same level as I'm going to for them being worn out. I started on the butt on that side, so we'll start on the butt on this side. And a lot of the stuff that I talk about with improving your miniatures, yeah, I'm aiming that advice at people who are coming to ReaperCon and they're going to enter the MSP Open based on the many years that I've been a judge and giving people feedback in classes and stuff. But if you are painting miniatures primarily for gaming, most of the stuff that talks about is just as true. You just are going to be economizing like the kind of techniques you're using to apply those things to fit with the amount of time that you have to paint those figures. But stuff like contrast and reading from a distance and all that kind of stuff applies just as much, if not more. Because there are actually some things that people who paint game miniatures are more likely to do better than people who paint display miniatures. Because display miniatures sometimes think, oh, all that contrast stuff doesn't matter for me. It just matters if I'm getting super smooth blending and I can do pretty freehand and all that kind of stuff. And that is 100% not true. All of that stuff is the frosting on the cake. The, you know, good contrast of hue and value and separating the sections of the miniatures and building your good foundation and stuff. That's your cake. And now we all want to eat cake, right? Hootie Hoot asks what sculpt this is. And this is... Oh, crap. If Green Users, if you're still there, do you remember the name that Ron gave him? This is one of the figures in the Brine Wind swag box for ReaperCon. And I want to say... No. If you... Maybe Quindy can look up on the website, because if you go to reapermini.com and you look at the swag boxes have individual pictures of everything, break down the names. And for some reason, I'm just thinking of I'm thinking of the name of the Dragon Folk pirate instead of the Knoll pirate, and that is not helpful. I can tell you that it was sculpted by Julie Guthrie, and it is a Knoll. And Hackle Blackhook. There we go. And this one I can't... So sometimes this happens because we get sent stuff. Like I got sent this to work on before they made the blister packs and sold it as miniature. So I'm like, I don't know, it's Mermaid Lady. Well, in that case, I did happen to know. But so that'll often be it for us. It's like cranky elf with a scimitar. And then we don't see what the real name is until, you know, it gets released as a product. So the chances of us remembering that it's, you know, fancy name elf are low, and in our brains it's always going to be cranky elf with a scimitar. At least for me. I'm pretty sure the other painters are kind of in the same boat, really. Like, we are not the ones to play the catalog, find that miniature, and name that miniature game that they were doing on Reaper Live a few weeks ago. Like, I don't know. Whatever Ron sends me. That's what miniature it is. I'm kind of liking how that goes. So that was, I went up as far as this, but I don't think that's enough contrast. I think we're going to need, to mix something in for highlights. Because I don't, let's see, I have some lighter blues here from painting the mermaid. And no, they're teal blues, so they're not going to be right. But I do kind of want to dull it down a little so it does look more faded. So in my dreams, I would have a light creamy color here. What do I got? Close enough. Let's see. There we go. We'll use that. This is one of the colors from this year, I think, Nod Bone. So this color is not at all blue, but that's partly why I'm going to choose to use it. Because I want this to look less blue where it's more faded. Anki 2014 says cranky elf with a bow. Oh, wait, that's Clever Crow's character. Yes, it is. Well, is he a cranky elf? Is he a homicidal elf? He's always ready to roll for initiative. So I'm going to make a few mixes of this of different strengths. Partly because if I get it wrong, then I can just switch to another one. I'm not always super scientific about this. But what I'm going to look at is, so people will sometimes ask me that, well, how many drops of, one color to another? And there's no fixed thing, because some paints are really potent and you'll have to mix in a lot of another color to get their color to change very much. And other paints are less potent, so just a tiny little drop will start to affect it. So what I go by is I'm looking for the look, and I didn't lay it out very well on my palette this time. But so what I want is a range of colors from this color lighter, where it's kind of, nice steps. And this is looking like that mostly. I could be wrong still. Even when I do this, I can be wrong, and I start putting the paint on the miniature, and maybe I have too many transitions and I end up not using one, or maybe I don't have enough and I have to mix in between things. But that's kind of, so the idea is the idea is something kind of like this. So this is my value scale that I show you guys, like literally everything. But when I'm mixing paint, I'm not going for, okay, I need 2 drops of this to 1 drop of this, and that's going to make the correct color in between these two. I'm mixing them together until it visually looks like a mix between, 50% of those 2 colors. Because the way the paint behaves in the bottle can vary wildly. I mean, not the way, the tinting strength, how much you have to mix with this, all of that can vary quite a bit. Is this the brush I was using before? Who knows? But again, because I just made some new risky paint mixes, I'm going to start at the back. So I don't know if you saw, I did add a little bit of water to these. I did that because this paint probably has a lot of white in it. It is more likely to be chalky. Well, it's more likely to be more opaque. So this is like a decently opaque paint, but it's not as opaque as something that has white in it. So when I'm making the mix, that's going to be the other factor, is that opacity. Even if it looks like the right next step up, it may be a little more powerful than what I put underneath it. I don't know if that made sense. The nice thing about this is it's a stream, so on another day I might make more sense and phrase that in a way that you might understand better. But yeah, I think this is doing what I want, because it is adding just a little bit of that yellowy tinge to help it make it look like old and faded. Let's see, did I add enough of the original color over here? Every now and then I rewatch the stream to see if I missed addressing something someone said, and if I'm generally like totally sucking at it or what. And I noticed that I do have a bad tendency to trail off into mumbling, which is probably 100% accurate to how I live my life, but I know it's not great for streaming, so I will be trying to do that a little less. But I guess I can't make promises. So you see there, I just used the very refined technique of wiping it off with your finger when you got too much paint there. I like to wash my hands before I sit down to paint, so that if I do end up touching the miniature some, I'm not adding a lot of oils to it. wasn't 100% consistent with the direction of these strokes, but that's okay. It will give it kind of more of a woven look that way. And maybe I want to give it more of a woven look on purpose. I don't know. Let's see. I do want to bring up these worn out parts more, for sure. I'm gonna go crosswise just a little. Try and give it more of a weave look. Hey Claytech, thanks for the raid. Welcome. Today I am painting this Knoll pirate. Since ReaperCon is coming up, so it's all pirate fever for Reaper fans. I don't know if you guys can tell, but this is actually a Rumteet Bay shirt that I got for last year's virtual ReaperCon. But I liked the 80s vibe shirts, so I got a couple of those. And I think we can still have a little more highlighting. I mean, I want to have some contrast to the darkness of the skin and play up that old worn out look. Wow, and I've literally already forgotten the name of this character. Hackle something or other. Well, our day has been somewhat fraught with technical difficulties, but apart from that, pretty good. That seems to be the theme of my shows, not the theme I was going for. I was going for experimentation and just relaxing and having fun with it, but instead we get technical difficulties. And so now that I've put in more highlighting, and I may go still a little lighter, this shadow here looks like a lot to me. So this is kind of when Trash was asking before about painting up from dark. I think this is something, you know, this is a little darker than the mid-tone in a place that shouldn't be as dark. So it's a depression. It should be a little darker, but it's not like under, you know, if you look at this, the sun isn't hitting under there at all. That should be nice and dark. There's going to be like a little sun hitting there. So I'm going to get one of my lighter colors and just lighten that up a little. So that looks like a depression, but not like a crazy deep valley in the middle of his leg. Heckle Block Hook. That sounds correct. Thanks, Claytech. I'm glad that you like the color scheme and the look of the character. Julie really sculpted a wonderfully characterful figure. And that's Green Users. The sculptor's actually in the chat. Julie Guthrie, although sometimes Green Users is also her husband, Bob Rodolphe, who does great sculpts as well. I had to choose between the Knoll and the Undead Pirates, and well, I didn't have to choose. I allowed myself to choose between the Knoll and the Undead Pirates. And I thought it would be interesting to share hyena fun facts, which I will not subject you all to again. That's in a past stream. If you do want some hyena fun facts, or Carrie, I know, is a hyena fan and will share some awesome facts with us. Trash asks, so they run with themes for ReaperCon for 2 to 3 years. So next year we might see a move from Brinewind. I might let John answer this question. So my experience has been, it used to be that the theme changed every year, although sometimes we might circle back to a theme. So there have been a couple of, sci-fi themed ones. I think there's only been one Western one, which is interesting when you think about where Reaper is. Then we, when it switched to October, we did kind of Dreadmere for, so I think it might have been more than 3 years, but I think it was at least 3 years. Then, last year was supposed to be Pirates, but ReaperCon didn't happen. So this year we're still Pirates because we didn't really get to enjoy being Pirates. So yeah, Reaper John says this is the last year in Brinewind for this block of being here. But this is, because people didn't get to share their painted miniatures and their costumes and all that good stuff, because we couldn't go do ReaperCon in person. So why change the theme if we haven't really gotten to enjoy the theme? And this is a similar thing now that there's more values on here. I feel like this part's a little too dark, so I'm just going to lighten it up a little. So I would say, for me at least, painting from the darkest up, that's got to be part of the factor, is being willing to stop every now and then and assess the thing as a whole and make sure that, I'm not leaving shadows super dark just because I started with a dark color. That it's super dark where it should be super dark, less, just somewhat dark where it should be somewhat dark. If that makes sense. Let's see. I think I missed some chat things here. Hyena hourly fun facts. They are fun facts. I mean, they are super interesting. Ashley the Monk says the Discord notifications finally convinced me to show up. Was that to the stream or like in general? If it's to the stream, thank you for coming and joining us. And Trash says that Julie sculpts all the dragons because Julie has a dragon hidden in her backyard. Well, now I really want to go visit Julie, if that is true. And Carrie Michael Cosby is sharing some awesome hyena facts with us. Julie says Ron named him Don't Blame Us. Yeah, I think the sculptors get very little input, if any, into the name of things. Although I feel for Ron, like having to name, so can you imagine naming like thousands of characters over the years? That's like it's a lot of characters. It's so many characters. I'm like terrible at naming things. When I used to run D&D, which I'm also terrible at doing, I would either have like a printout of names off the internet. So if somebody, and this was like the old days internet, this was like Usenet or something. If somebody said, well, what's their name? I would just pull out one of those, or everybody that I hadn't already decided a name for was just Bob. No offense, Bob. That was just sort of became my default. Why do you need to know the stable boy's name? His name is Bob. Does it matter? And I'm sure that the reason they needed to know his name is because they knew that I had problems with this and they were torturing me. So that is the GM-player relationship, after all. Am I in frame? I'm in frame, yeah. But I could zoom a little. So I think these pants are getting to the point where I can live with them. But I just want to double check that if there are any holes or rip parts or whatever that I accentuated the edges of those appropriately. So that we get the full impact of how worn out Julie has sculpted his stuff. Well, his pants at least. It looks like he's at least kept his sword up a little to snuff, but you know, sometimes you're out pirating, you just don't have time to get to the Gap and buy new pants. But you gotta take care of your sword and your hook. Although I am, for those who missed the beginning of the stream, because the beginning of the stream was a technological fail, I was talking a bit about how sometimes I break up the various painting tasks. So if you're looking at the sword and the hook on this guy and going, wow, that's awful nice and clean and shiny for a pirate Noel, I agree with you. This is a little too factory fresh. And I am going to go back and address that, but I like to sometimes do that towards the end because I'm going to take colors that I've used elsewhere on the figure and work that into that. And that especially makes sense for metal objects because metal objects are reflecting the environment around them. So the sword and the hook are kind of, I've established the value, but I may play with the color just a little. I was thinking about after I finished up the hook after this, so I started the hook on stream last week, and then I finished it up after the stream just because I had the paint out and I wanted to finish it instead of making you guys watch me paint more anime. But I was also thinking, like, this part probably isn't metal. It's probably like leather or something. You know, if I'd done my research and looked at a hook, which I did not. But I also decided that, you know, he's a fantasy Noel, so that's okay. I did not really think about how do hooks work. Okay. Sorry about that, but I can hear my voice starting to go. So now I have to decide what to paint next. And the correct answer is probably the leather. So I want to go tan, but because of the blue and because the fur is fairly desaturated, I'm a little concerned about going, you know, if it's going to be so much hue contrast that it's really going to stand out. But I'm going to go with this kind of is what I'm aiming for the mid-tone. And let's see, do I have darker colors? I think I'm going to have to steal from the mermaids pile of stuff again. Yeah, that's nice and dull. And I am going to make it a little... I want the... oh, you know what? I am going in the wrong order. Because there is this cool sash that's under the belt. And maybe I missed part of his pants. Let's just review if I missed part of his pants. Because I think this part up here is pants, not sash. I meant to do this and then I totally got distracted. But while I'm doing this, do you all have an opinion on what color you think I should paint that sash? And I'll see if I can do that. Because I've thought about it and I just kind of keep waffling. So you see he's got the sash that's under there and then it hangs over his leg. That is why I cannot paint the leather straps and belts and stuff yet, because they are underneath. Okay. Paint needs to dry a little. So let me see if I have colors to suggest here. Yeah, I could go pink even. I got Doxy Blush. What else have I got? Just worn out looking bruised purple. just be kind of a creamy color. So I could use some of those colors, which this one was Gnawed Bone and that one is Treasure Map. A light lemon yellow. Interesting. That will be an interesting challenge because I don't have a lot of yellows. So that would be very highly contrasted if I did that, because yellow and blue aren't direct complements, but they're kind of in the family. So I'm going to have to make kind of a dull yellow. So if it's lemon yellow, that's probably going to be too intense. But if I use kind of a yellow more like this one, that would probably not be as jarring. Claytech asks, would I like it to pop as a color or be more muted? I feel like it probably needs to be a little more on the muted side because I don't want to distract too much from his face. There's going to be a little more going on his face than there is now, but there's not going to be a lot of saturated color. Severa Monto says the yellow would make him look a bit Swedish with the blue pants. That's a good point. So I'll keep out the Oxide Yellow, which granted is not a Reapercon color, but it's from the Kickstarter 5 that just fulfilled, so it's also a new color. And I'll keep out the Torchlight, which I believe is a Reapercon color from this year even, in case for highlights. Erides says maroon, and Claytex says I'm leaning towards the dull yellow or the purple. Pendrake TG asks, am I sticking only with colors from the box sets? The colors from the box set and the Kickstarter colors and then whatever I've been using on the mermaid are what I have here to hand. So kind of yes. I could get up and go. So my paint is actually like opposite my desk. It's like a whole wall of paint. If you've seen Reaper Aaron, you've seen my paint. So there's a lot of it, but it's not super conveniently located. What other purples do we have here? Yeah, I'm kind of tempted to go with the bruised maroon. I mean, the bruised purple, which is kind of a maroon. I am concerned that the, yellowy colors would draw a lot of attention from his face. So there's going to be some yellow in the leather strap, and then I'm also going to put a similar color. If I look at my pictures here, they seem to be kind of a little darker on the muzzle, and then there's lighter color around it. And I want to use a bit of a tan color up there so that I do have color contrast with that, neutral gray. His skin is purple gray, or his fur is purple gray, not neutral gray, but because of that purple, if I use a tan, that will be a yellow purple contrast, and that should pop it a little. Pendrake asks, what do you get by mixing the Doxy Red and the Torchlight? Well, all right, let's find out. You said 3 drops each, but that's really the same as 1 drop each. That's a 1-to-1 ratio still. So I'm just going to do 1 drop and find out what happens. In theory, we should get something a little peachy, I would think. But let's find out. Yep, I think that's handy because peach is a weird color I have trouble mixing. So it's almost a skin color, really. If you just dull down that a little, it would work as a skin color. Let's see if I have a skin color to compare with. I have a super saturated skin color, but there's Rosy Shadow, which is what I used on the mermaid. And yeah, this is I do like this color. What would it look like if it were darker, though? Would be my question. Because I said I was going to start from the darkest color, right? So let's try it with the bruised purple and the yellow. And see what that gets. If that gets it's like a darker version of that. I think we need to add the pink. Yep, I can live with that as a darker version. It's probably not perfect. needs red. That is not red. I had one whole red in this set though. There we go. Chum red. Try again. Let's see what happens. That seems a little more like a darker version of that. So let's go with it. Normally if I were mixing, I mean, no, that's not always true. It's easier to mix if you just put out like the drops of color and then you're just grabbing a little bit from here and there off your palette. If you're like fully into a ton of color mixing, which historically I am not, I've done it. I mix with normal, with traditional media, but for miniatures, if I can, the more paints I can get in the bottle that are like the colors I want, the quicker it's going to be. But it is fun to talk to you guys about mixing as well. So that was a cool idea. Thank you, Penry. All right. So now we're at the stage where my messy approach to base coating has to be moderated somewhat. And I have to decide what is sash and what is not. Because it does seem like his sash should be a little bit of flair, like he probably grabbed it off. Some poor noble or something that he was robbing in a pirate ship attack. Probably grabbed it because he liked it because it was a cool color. It's interesting because I would say that it looks pinker on the figure than it looked on the palette, which is an example of color being very relative, which it 100% is. And that's one of the ways you get into frustrations with color if you're not used to working with color, or if it's not your favorite part of the whole process. I know it can be very frustrating for people. Certainly, I have been a people who has been very frustrated. Sorry, I'm just trying to... These aren't my closest up specs, so I'm just working on figuring out what is what. And then, while we're here, I'm going to get that tan color back. Where did I put it? And do some of that stuff on the muzzle that I was talking about, because the paint is drying. So when I'm painting, typically I actually try to be pretty focused in my painting, and I probably wouldn't be switching around from area to area unless I was just doing like a quick mini for fun or something. It is efficient for quickness, but I'm not someone who changes gears well all the time. So typically what I would be doing right now is just running my hairdryer to get things to the next stage, instead of swapping to a different section. But I'm trying to reserve the use of a hairdryer on stream for like if there's no alternative action. I even have a little sign made up, so the first time it happens, I have a little sign to put here, so because I'll take the sound off so that people don't have to listen to the hairdryer, so that then they know why there's no sound. Like how today we had someone who came in while I had the camera set to black and white, and they're like, what's happening? Why is there no color? Which I can see why that would be very confusing. So, oops. Let's see mellow. So it's a little dark still. I'm going to come in and lighten that up. But I'm hoping that the color contrast will help drive some focus to the face. Because that is the challenge of painting things with like dark drab colors if the thing is part of the face. I'm going to lighten that up with the nod bone again. And the first color I started with was Golden Griffin Tan, which is one of my favorites out of the Reapercon paints this year. It's a nice color for Golden MM and some other things. It is a handy color that I'm happy to have added to my arsenal. But I'm also going to mix those two together, and the nod bone dulled it down a little too much. So I'm going to get some of that Oxide Yellow, which is a color that I also really like, but that's from the Kickstarter. So that will be coming out for everyone. I just don't know when. And hopefully some of the Kickstarter colors will also come out. I mean, I'm pretty sure that some of the RVE colors are still available for sale. If you didn't get any of those. Clay says if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, they offer free noise canceling software I use on my screen, and it dulls cuts out the heat gun really well. I'm not sure. Reaper bought this laptop, so I'm not sure what's in it. I find it Zoom does that. So I've been taking like Zoom watercolor and drawing classes and stuff, and they sort of found out by accident. So the person running the stream was all like, okay, we all have to be quiet for a minute because there's going to be some hair dryer and you won't be able to hear me talking. And then it just automatically drowns out like repetitive noises like that. So presumably because if you're in your business meeting and someone starts running their vacuum in the background or something, it takes care of it. But I thought that was pretty nifty that it did that. So now I just kind of want to blend in a little between where the muzzle fur is kind of the more tan color and where it's like the purpley grays. So really I'm just literally mixing those two colors together. So this was, I think, the highlight color from the short fur, and then that's the color I was highlighting the tan fur with, and I just mixed them together well. And I'm just going to touch it along the edges to make it look like more of a natural transition. Because as we talked about earlier, for those who missed it, that is a tiger leg demonstration of how fur edges shouldn't be really sharp. Because fur is little hairs that break up the edges. So I think that helps his face stand out a little more. And then once I add in the details of the nose and the teeth and the eyes. And I've been waffling about what color to paint the eyes. I think, a real hyena's eyes are, dark brown or close to black. But I want them to pop, and they have this supposed demonic origin and stuff. So I'm thinking about doing more like of a red or an orange or something. Just going to touch up a few spots on there. Since there's so little saturated color on the face, it seems worth adding. If I make the eyes a saturated color, that will help draw attention to them. Playtex says Zoom and Google Meet are clever with the noise canceling too. I'm guessing all of those companies have really made a lot of strides in the past year and a half as so many more people use their service and find ways to make it better. I do wish that they would improve it for art purposes. Like the resolution is just so terrible. I don't know if they have a high resolution option. I'm guessing they don't, because even when we did ReaperCon, I was the only, when you were giving classes, only the instructor was on video, so it wasn't like everybody else's video was dragging down the overall quality. But when I went back and watched those classes after, I was like, oh golly, here I am sitting here saying, and you can see here, and I'm like, no, they can't see crap. So I was a little sad about that. I'm going to try this on the eyes. So this is Oxide Red. And then I can mix it with that Oxide Yellow to lighten it if I need to. And then make sure that they're dark enough before I begin all that. With my ever favorite blue liner. The color that is darker than black. Blue recedes, so in a way it is kind of darker than black. I mean, they do look kind of cool dark, actually, don't they? Maybe I should just put a highlight reflection on. I guess she's gonna look a little scarier with black eyes. So maybe I should stick with the really dark eyes and just add a highlight reflection. I'll let you guys vote on that too. So do you want me to kind of do like reddish eyes or just add a highlight reflection to dark eyes? I will let you answer that while I check if this is dry or not. Close enough. So I'm going to mix our two colors together for a bit of a transition. So those are my color mixes. This was the original color that I think Pendrake or Trash got me to mix weird colors. So I mixed Oxy Blush and Torchlight and came up with that. And then I created the shadow color. And I'm starting with the shadow colors on this, so those are just my transition points. And for those who weren't here at the beginning, I'm not trying to hide the palette, but if I put it in view, the camera starts focusing on the palette instead of the miniature. So I figure it's more useful to you to see me doing the painting than see the paint on the palette. Which is also why I have this here, because I have these stripes on my desk. And I think that also has been messing with the camera, so I thought I would hide them. And see if that helped. Don't see any votes for eyes yet. I don't know how well you can see when I'm working under the hook hand. Sometimes I can't see that well. get to the lighter colors. So I'm not trying to make this look textured in the same way as the cloth on the pants, but I figure it is also still a little worn and sun damaged. So I'm not going for like a super smooth, shiny silk type of look or something like that. So I'm using kind of this streaky stroke. I was not aware of the time, and I will need to, I'll just finish the highlighting on this because I actually do have something to do this evening, and hopefully I've made up a little bit for the late start, but we will start closing things up. So I think I'm still home next Monday, so there will definitely be a show next Monday. I'm going to assume that there will probably be a show while I'm at ReaperCon since they have the fancy studio and everything. But it is also possible that, we'll have to have meetings or something else. Or we'll all be exhausted and dead. So I'm not going to, guarantee that there is going to be a show the Monday after ReaperCon. But I deem it likely. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'll probably just do whatever they want me to do. For the rest of the week, I don't know for sure if Anne's back. Maybe Quindy knows, or if John's still in the chat, he could confirm whether Anne has come back from her vacation and or move. But her show is normally at 11:30 Central every day. Then I'm on Mondays. Then Tuesday afternoon is the Crow's Nest. Well, Tuesday evening, I guess, really. Wednesday is Miniatures Den with Luca. Thursday is Crafty Creative with Josh Foreman. And of course, Thursday evening is the flagship show, Reaper Live. Every other Friday, we just did it, so not this Friday, but we will be having one at ReaperCon. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be the same time, but Reaper Airing normally starts at 6 Central, but it is possible there will be a time change. Keep an eye on whatever streaming schedule information is provided for ReaperCon. And, I forgot Friday afternoon is Reaper Land with John and Dave. And then I believe that Sadie's show, Painting Platinum, is on hiatus currently. So, let's see. Zebo Zira says, as per Anne's Discord at 1:58 p.m. today, she is not resuming until Thursday. Hold on. Potential spam. So many potential spam calls lately. So I'm gonna just close off. I'm guessing that Quindy will find us a raid, and she'll find you some other person who's doing cool, fun things to watch. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll probably, she's getting a little closer to done. So I'll probably still be working on this next week, but who knows? Maybe I'll have some other idea. Since I'm prepping for ReaperCon, I'm certainly not going to do something that takes a lot of lead time. But we'll have fun. We'll chat. And thank you for coming, and thank you for putting up with all the technical problems. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Just turn off some of these lights. You're welcome, Alvizine. Thank you, Quindy, for all the modding.